In the context of the US-China competition, China is always described as a rising power. But no, that's not true. China is already a superpower, and here are 5 trends to support my views. The first is economic strength. China is already the second biggest economy in the world, with a GDP of about $17.9 trillion. It is the biggest trading partner for about 120 countries and accounts for about 15% of global trade today. China has been able to do that in several ways. The first is colossal manufacturing capability. China's manufacturing accounts for something like 30% of the global manufacturing output, and that positions China as a very strong economic power. The second way it has been able to do it is through its Belt and Road initiative. This is a grand scheme of linking countries with its infrastructures, such as railways, roads, bridges, ports, highways, and others. China has invested judiciously in over 150 countries, and all this puts China in a very, very strong economically dominant position. The third way that China is becoming an economically dominant or powerful country is through its currency, which is now increasingly being used around the world for settlement of trades in goods and services, much of it which is produced by China, by the way. And as a result of this, many central banks are beginning to keep a portion of the reserves in the Chinese yuan. This internationalization of its currency is the reason why the US government has been putting in measures and taking steps to halt or slow down the growth of the appeal of the Chinese yuan in international commerce. Yes, these measures may halt or slow down the appeal of the Chinese currency in international commerce slightly, but I can tell you the long-term trend is intact. China's currency will continue to grow in appeal, and this will continue to add to China's economic power. So collectively, all these 3 elements which I mentioned just now provides China a dominant position in terms of the economy. The second trend that we have to consider is technological capability. It is somewhat related to the economic power which we just discussed, but in terms of technology, China for a very long time used to be known as the world's contract manufacturer. It produced products which were designed by other countries, and it was able to produce them in larger quantities, cheaper, etc. But today, China is leading in innovation. It is a leader in the manufacturing of many types of goods which are consumed around the world. Let's take one example as an example. China, a Chinese company recently released an artificial intelligence platform known as DeepSeek. This was described as a Sputnik moment, and indeed it is true, because the company spent about only $6 million to produce this artificial intelligence model, which not only was able to rival the dominant model used by OpenAI, but also beat it in some aspects. OpenAI was developed at the cost of hundreds of millions of dollars. I think it was close to something like $1 billion. But China, or this Chinese company, was able to do it in under $6 million. Not only that, that company has released it as an open source. What it means now is that now many other competitors are going to come in. They are going to be able to produce or replicate or make other forms of AI, application, cheaper, better, faster. Now this is reminiscent of the age of computers. When computers was first made in the 1940s, ENIAC, I think, was the first computer. It was a humongous machine. It occupied an entire floor, and it cost millions of dollars to manufacture. And obviously, not many countries could do this. Even as late as the 1980s, by which time computers had become much more sophisticated, we were still using things like mainframe computers produced by IBM. And again, they were very expensive machines, and not many countries can produce them. In fact, that kept America in the lead for many, many years. But later, when the integrated chips were made, they became smaller and smaller and smaller. More and more computing could be packed into the chips, and the machines became more smarter and more powerful. Just for your knowledge, the average handheld device that we use today has more computing power than the computers used by Apollo 11 to put man on the moon. That shows the amount of innovation that has gone into this particular field of computer manufacturing and computer powers. This is exactly what is going to happen to AI with what this DeepSeek has done. It has democratized this field. America is no longer going to be dominant, is no longer the companies that are able to produce these high-powered chips like what NVIDIA does, is not going to be the determining power of artificial intelligence usage or production or what do you call development in the future. It's going to be cheaper, faster, easier for countries and companies to do. And China is right at the middle of it. And as AI becomes very important in global manufacturing, China's position strengthens together with it. Beyond that, China is also making huge strides in space exploration. It has landed a rover on Mars. It already has its own space station, Tiangong, which is fully operational. And China has embarked on a plan to put man on the surface of the moon by 2030. This means that China would be able to rival the United States in the area of space exploration. Yes, of course, we must not forget that India is right behind. It's also taking the same path. But since this conversation is about China, I am making the point that in space exploration, China is already well poised to occupy a position as a superpower. And then we have these high-speed rails. China has 42,000 kilometers of high-speed rail, more than all the high-speed rail around the world by all countries combined. China is clearly a leader in this area as well. Then we have electrical vehicles. Tesla is still the leader in this battery electrical vehicles, but then there is also the other type of electrical vehicles, which is the plug-in electrical vehicles. And Chinese company BYD is actually the leader in terms of manufacturing of both these types of EVs, electrical vehicles. And BYD is not the only Chinese company. Collectively, China obviously is a leader in EV production, and you can already get the point. Electrical cars, China is leading. High-speed rail connection, China leading. Is Belt and Road Network infrastructure, China is leading. In space, it is catching up with America. In artificial intelligence, it is already at the heart or center of a boom in AI development of the future. So clearly, in this second trend, China is already well positioned as a superpower. The third trend is military power. Well, in this particular area, the US is clearly still ahead of China, in fact, well ahead. But you remember, China has a very large army. It has over 2 million active soldiers. It has more than 500,000 reservists. The People's Liberation Army's Navy is quickly catching up in terms of number of ships. I think it has something like 370 warships as compared to the US, which has about 470, which is still in the lead. But China clearly has a growing military capability, and it is catching up. The fourth trend is global finance. I have mentioned earlier that the Chinese yuan is becoming internationalized by virtue of it being used by many countries for settling trade with China. And China, of course, has its own what you call currency settlement system, which operates, in dealing with the payment of its goods and services using its own currency. But I want to talk about something else, which is also significant, which is something known as Project M-Bridge. Well, this is a project that was started about 4 years ago by four central banks, which is Central Bank of Thailand, UAE, Hong Kong, and China. The idea was to develop alternative platform for multi-currency settlement. Remember, I told you China has its own platform for settling its own in its own currency, but this M-Bridge is a platform to provide settlement of multi-currency transactions, and these four central banks were the first to get together to put it together. But this was done under the supervision of the Bank of International Settlements based in Basel. Ultimately, the entire project is linked to the US dominant SWIFT system, and it has been tried over the last 4 years. And in June 2024, finally, the Bank of International Settlements announced proudly that that system, Project M-Bridge, was viable, meaning that this system now can be used for multi-currency settlement of trades without using the dollar. China could settle its payments in yuan, the Thai baht could be used together in the same system, and the UAE currency, and of course Saudi Arabia has also joined. The Bank of International Settlements suddenly decided that it would no longer support this project. But guess what? China decided to take over. China is now in possession of an alternative multi-currency payment system that has the potential to rival the US-dominated global SWIFT system. For the time being, it is not being pursued aggressively, but I am certain that if the tensions between the US and China were to increase, especially in the economic domain, I think China would step up its pressure, and perhaps more central banks would join the system, and we might find one day M-Bridge would be a powerful rival to the US-dominated system. And the fifth trend is global diplomacy. China has been on a path of winning the hearts and minds of many countries around the world. Well, we spoke about the Belt and Road Initiative. Of course, some countries are probably in trouble or unhappy with the way things have turned out, but the vast majority of them are happy. They have been able to benefit through this project, and these are all done without any strings attached, which normally comes with support or loans from the Western countries. So China is, in a way, seen in a very positive light by many countries around the world. In Southeast Asia, for example, recently a survey was done. It showed that a slight majority of the respondents favored China, even over America. Well, subsequently, another study was done to show that the decision-making elites had a different view. They did not see China as positively as the general public did. But the point I'm making is that China is not seen as an enemy by a large majority of the people in Southeast Asia and around the world. In fact, it is seen in a very positive light. China speaks in support of the global South. Its position taken on many international issues are the same as the positions taken by or desired by these developing countries. And China's role in BRICS, for example, is something that is seen very positively by large number of countries. And not to forget, China is also in the center of many other organizations such as the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Even within ASEAN, China plays a very significant role as a dialogue partner. So, what I'm saying is that China has been making very important strides in this area of global diplomacy. Um, and that positions China again as a strong competitor or contender for superpower role. So, in conclusion, it is no longer a question of if or when. China has already become a superpower. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you very much.